You're welcome back. Well, the Digital Quality of Life Index is an annual study that ranks 121 countries by their digital well-being based on 5 core pillars. Nigeria's internet quality is just around the global average. The internet is highly unaffordable, according to that report, and compared to other countries, Nigeria lags behind. For the latest report, South Africa leads on the continent, being at the 72nd position. Kenya follows at 76. In fact, Kenya overtook Nigeria. Nigeria is now at 88th position globally. Now, this is Surfshark's 5th annual Digital Quality of Life Index, ranking Nigeria 88th in the world, dropping by 2 places from last year. Let's understand the implication of this ranking. Joining us for this virtually from Jos in Plateau State is Johnson Pilaka. He's a tech and media analyst. Good morning, Johnson. Thank you for your time.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so the report says Nigeria has dropped 2 places. Does it really make any difference?
Well, I think that, because they major the ranking on 5 core pillars, which is internet quality, internet affordability, security, infrastructure, and, governance. And so you can see some, changes in some of these places. There's like an up and down. So while there's improvement in, say, governance, there is issue with internet quality, and internet affordability is also like down. So it's just that kind of like change of position as regards to their position, their performance, on the core pillars that Surfshark used to bring about the index. So that's basically the change that we could say counts, when the report says they have dropped by like 2 places.
Does it tell us anything about the well-being of Nigerians? I mean, they say it's the quality of digital life.
Yeah, so if you look at internet quality, they are talking about the fact that internet quality in Nigeria is still slow, and then you look at affordability, they also say that internet affordability, internet is still not affordable in Nigeria. And I mean, if you try to look at it, let's just go back to our news reporting in the past. We've seen issues around, internet depletion. We've seen telco communication companies say we are going to, increase the cost of internet because of, challenges of running, challenges around running these companies, from, cost of diesel. So that has affected the affordability. And the quality as well. There's conversation about the internet depletion, which the NCC has been working with telco companies to see how that can be fixed. And like a few months ago, I was working on a report, regarding the Galaxy Backbone project, which took me to a village in Plateau State, somewhere called Vom. And basically, I was trying to look at how, agency banking is thriving in this community based on internet quality improvement. So why there's improvement? I mean, this is a global ranking that works with 121 countries globally. And so when that comparison goes globally, although we are seeing improvements on the grassroots, there is still, room for more improvement when you go on like a global scale. So that's how it affects the well-being of people using the internet. And I mean, like the spokespersons, Gabriel said, it affects everything we do. This conversation we are having, we need the internet, right? So we need quality internet, we need affordable internet to be able to access some of these things. So you hear that a telco rolls out 5G internet, and then, or you hear conversation about even financial inclusion, trying to bank the unbanked people in rural communities. If internet is not affordable, if there's no quality internet in these communities, it affects the well-being, of the Nigerian on the street that is trying to use its transaction. And then we have had, when the whole demonetization policy came on board, you could see issues around people having transactions failure because of internet. So in summary, that's how it affects, the people in some ways. So when you talk about like their digital quality of life, their well-being, that's how it affects them.
So when we say that Nigeria performed best in internet quality, claiming the 62nd place, does it indicate that our infrastructure challenges, at least when it has to do with internet penetration, does it mean we're handling it right?
Yes, so like I mentioned the Galaxy Backbone project that I was covering. That is an awesome initiative trying to push. I know they've done like the first phase of the project. The NCC at the time, I think 2 years ago, said they were like 98%, done with the second phase of the project, which is covering most of the northern region, which is what I actually covered. And so when you go to these communities, like conversation I was having with small traders, people that use SMEs in these communities, in Vaughan community particularly. And so in my conversation with them, I realized that, some of the things they could not do previously, they are now able to do because, the infrastructure is now being accessible to them. But then on the other hand, while there's improvement, there is also, failure of some of the projects like the rural telephony project, which a colleague also worked on, in communities in rural Abuja, for instance, where people are still having challenges when it comes to using the internet, when it comes to having quality internet, right? So while there's improvement, there is still more room for improvement. There is still more room to ensure that the broadband penetration, of course, there's been like improvement on the broadband penetration as it was like 2 years ago. I think as at the time I was doing the report, it was close to like 45%, and the government, the former digital economy minister, talks about Nigeria having a target of reaching 90 broadband penetration. And so while the government is trying to create those kind of initiatives that enables this, there is still room to do more, especially in rural communities, when we jump into conversations like financial inclusion.
And then affordability, obviously, I saw a part of the report that said a Nigerian will have to work about 2 or 3 hours to be able to afford, internet and all of that. I guess we should just celebrate the fact that the quality has improved and know that we have to pay for it, But how do you think that this costs can be reduced? I know that, when you have a lot of supply, then you can obviously bring down the price, but that seems like a long-term vision.
Well, I think improvement of the cost is like a larger conversation that has to do with the key stakeholders, which is like the government and, the operators. And it's an ongoing conversation that they've been having. They've had issues where the telco companies are saying, we want to increase our prices. The government is saying you should not increase it. But basically, it goes down to the economy generally. So what are the challenges these people are facing? They need money to run diesel, to run their data centers, and what powers the internet that the common man uses. So once the prices for the resources they need to run those things are on the increase, then we have to bear the cost. So that's a broader conversation that has to do more with what the government and the operators are able to do as regards to ensuring that cost of running the business, is reduced, and then that once that is reduced, it's definitely going to impact on the affordability generally. So now you talk about people working for 2 hours, 49 minutes, and 15 seconds a month to be able to afford mobile internet, and you could see that if you use internet yourself, you could see that the cost you were buying it maybe a year ago, it's not the same. And then there is still the conversation of internet depletion, where even though you are using a lot of money to buy it, there is still that challenge where the internet, people are complaining that it's not lasting as it used to be. So it's just a broader conversation that the regulator and the operators have to sit together as they've been doing, to proffer solutions to.
Yeah, but from what you've said, it sounds like a long one. But I think the worst that's in the ranking for Nigeria is the e-government, being 88 out of 121. That's very close to the bottom. But we've heard government talk a whole lot about the ease of doing business, the corporate communication Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, they say that in 24 hours you can register your business and it's all virtual. You know, some state governments have tried to bring the issue of registering your land, you know, virtual. All of this should feed into e-governance, but we're doing really bad at 88th position.
I mean, so it goes to the first question is, who are the 112 countries or 121 countries that are on the ranking? These are more developed countries. They are just a little about 25 African countries represented on the index. So when you look at, it's like comparing the little effort you are making to, you know, more global leaders in the ICT sector. And so although it might look like effort, like I said earlier, it might look like we are doing well locally, when they take us on the global standard, you could see that there are some issues, right? So a few weeks ago, I did a reporting on, you know, African countries' readiness when it comes to like artificial intelligence. And African countries are still lagging behind, and Nigeria is one of them. So we can see that now the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy is trying to rally around to come together and bring an AI policy that helps that, you know, this AI policy, in fact, is what made the country that topped on that particular AI index stand out. So when they work together to like bring together these policies, and, you know, it doesn't stop at bringing the policy, it goes to implementation. So we have been having that conversation with the Nigerian Startup Act as well. The Startup Act has been signed, but how far has the adoption or implementation been so far? We've heard state governments say we are going to implement it. So far, we've had Kaduna, we have Lagos, we have even Plateau State, you know, having conversation around implementation. So sometimes when the policy documentations are done, there is still need to monitor. So we are seeing that data protection, for instance, which is another key point that Shopsharks use in their ranking, we are seeing that the government recently inaugurated a committee which job is to look at, you know, ensuring the implementation of all of these things that are on paper. So there's a lot of work to do. When from paper, there should be a transition into like implementing, to ensuring that all of these conversations that were done, all of the town hall meetings that were held, are actually being reflected, you know, in the way that transactions are being done, that, you know, in the way government is running its businesses. And so they see a challenge when it comes to like implementation after the paperwork is done, and we could see that with the Nigerian Startup Act, for instance. So.
Yeah, so I guess all of this, we have a beautiful policy on paper, but implementation, that's why Kenya, we're a big brother of Africa, yet Kenya has overtaken us by two places. And we see that country, you know, doing really well when it comes to the use of electronic transactions and all of that. Perhaps Nigeria needs to put its eye that way and get one or two lessons from them.
Yeah, and I mean, the reference you made to Kenya, and it's just, you know, they recently had like an e-mobility policy, and we can see that actually Kenya is doing a lot when it comes to like e-mobility. Uber recently launched like an EV, like an electric vehicle in the community. We also like had another tech company recently that launched, and we have companies that are coming up in that sector. So what the instance I'm just trying to make is, Kenya is saying we want to push e-mobility. We have this target at this year, and you can practically see that as it's being done in their country. So when you talk about, when you set those goals, it's very important to go back and start implementing, doing the hard work. So it's good on paper, but it has to reflect in the way that the people are living. So that's very important. I feel like, you know, now there's been a transition in government. There's been like, you know, a new minister who has worked in the tech ecosystem, who has, you know, led businesses and worked with other businesses, who is like experienced, you know, when it comes to running businesses and the challenges businesses have faced when it comes to like ICT. So I'm hoping to like see those conversations. We've been seeing him talk about it in his recent trip to India, and now at the UN General Assembly, we are still seeing him have those conversations with investors, trying to see how, you know, they can be that improvement, trying to also go down to even technical talents, because there've been this exodus of talents leaving the country, and it's important that, you know, we still have people in the country who are skilled enough to help implement these policies, to help build these technologies. So it's still very early, just over 100 days, and so we are still trying to pay attention and watch carefully, how the current administration tries to put to work some of these things that are already on paper.
Yeah, well, of course, a lot of us are also watching, and high expectations there from the Minister of Digital Economy. But, I mean, the Deputy Secretary Treasury, Mr. Wale Adeyemi, was in the country, from the United States, was in the country, and one of the places he visited before he left was, Ikeja Computer Village. Seems a whole lot of talent there, and he did talk about, them investing in companies. What features do you think would make a startup, to be that attractive, or give the security that an investor needs, to attract funds and to sustain it and grow those funds, to grow above being a startup?
I mean, so most importantly, we've already had this conversation in the few minutes we've been talking, and most importantly, the government creating an enabling environment. This involves regulations, this involves provision of infrastructure. And so when it goes back to the innovator, it goes to them, thinking out ideas that are relevant and are solving real life problems for, the people in the environment. So what solutions are you building? Are you building like a fintech solution? How relatable is it to the person on the street? How useful is it? Because, the conversation that people have been having lately is that probably you are building a product that is not so relevant to a lot of people. So there should be that room of, them building products that are relevant to people in the community. And because that is the market, right? So if you are building what is relevant that people need, they would definitely want to use it, and that will definitely bring returns to whoever has invested. So, the innovators rather thinking about ideas, and we can already see a lot of companies in the country, a lot of tech companies in the country that have done a lot of things when it comes to education, healthcare, and financial services especially. So take for instance ULesson, an edtech company based in Abuja, was formerly based in Jos, is able to transition from just providing education for people in elementary schools to secondary schools, and they recently got a license from the NUC to provide a degree, to build a degree awarding institution. And so when that shows their relevance, and I mean they recently raised a lot of money as well to help them double down on what they are building. And we are also seeing, although there is an economic downturn where there's less money coming into the ecosystem, but we are still seeing people raise money. Why? Because we had conversation with an investor some time ago, and he said no matter the economic downturn, people are still going to raise money if they are building what is relevant to their communities. And immediately they are building what is relevant to their communities. It means people are going to use it, people are going to pay for it. And, we could also see the conversation about relevance when the demonetization policy came on board. We could see that, people had to, some popular names, in the fintech industry popped up because their relevance was tested at that point, and people actually had to leverage it for their transactions, say businesses. And in this community where I was, for instance, you could see that a lot of people probably using POS machines by money points and some of these Nigerian-born ideas. So just building what is relevant is the very key point, very starting point. And also there's a place for accountability. And so there have been a lot of conversation about, founders' accountability, ensuring that you are using the money you have gotten the right way. And so I feel like when you get the money, you are building what is right, you are also being accountable to people. Sometimes we focus conversation about accountability on the government, and so there's little or no focus on the private sector. But I mean, when these innovators build these solutions and get money from investors, they should also be accountable to the monies that they have been given. So that will also help. Once there's accountability, there's transparency. Somebody, even by word of mouth, somebody says, I invested in a Nigerian company, and the founder I worked with did great when it came to investors updates, when it came to accountability as to what he was doing, the challenges he was facing. Someone else would be interested to come. But I mean, when we are not able to drive that narrative of accountability, some people will just be scared of bringing, money to where we are, especially because of the already bad name when it comes to like cyber crime that we have in the global space.
Yeah, well, a whole lot there, but I guess all of this will help us to fulfill that mandate of Africa's solution to the world. I think that's the latest one there now that is out there, Africa's solution to the world, not just for African problems, but also for solving challenges out there. But we do hope to get there because we've got what it takes. We just need to get it out there.
Yeah, just to add, I mean, we are seeing African companies expand into other regions. Just a few weeks ago, Flutterwave expanded into India. So we are seeing those Asian and European expansion.
So truly, it's Africa's solutions to the world.
Yeah. So we are seeing that, and it's what I said about relevance. Once it's relevant, you are going to see people are going to call out to you, to bring those solutions to them so that they can leverage as well. So we can see companies like Flutterwave move out outside of Africa, go to Asia, go to Europe, and many other African countries as well doing some of these things. So if we keep the pace, as to building what is relevant to our community, leveraging our solutions. I was watching an interview, I can't remember who, but
all right, Johnson. All right, Johnson, we really have to go. Thank you so much, Johnson. Pilaka is a tech and media analyst, obviously a passionate a stakeholder when it comes to the ICT sector. Thank you for sharing your perspective with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.